Hey Pragya, hi. Thank you for making time for today's call.
Hi, Shivani. Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yeah. So on today's episode of Caffeine and Carrots, I have Pragya with me. Pragya is a CS leader. So Pragya, if you take a few minutes to introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure, Shivani. So I have been in customer facing roles. Now I'm in a role that is leading the customer success team. Um, from my couple of years of understanding what the end users and the senior management wants from a product has helped me understand is to have a very clear vision of the team. Why is your product being bought by these companies?
Mhm.
And what is the value that you can add to these companies?
Right.
Customer success is still a relatively new uh, team and a department in India. People are still understanding, so there are no hard and fast rules. I have been learning on the job. I have had some great people to help me out and understand how this can be implemented. And yes, have learned a few things on the way.
Great. Pragya, it's really cool of you to spend some time with us on this episode. And today we are going to talk about the account risk mitigation. As in our previous conversations, you have spoken about how you're leading your team into driving them towards more CS centric approach rather than focusing just on firefighting on an everyday basis. So that's what we are going to cover a little bit in depth today. So when it comes to account risk management, my first question, and probably the most obvious one, is identifying the risk itself. So how does a key account manager or a CSM identify and prioritize the potential risks when it comes to crafting a playbook around account risk mitigation or risk mitigation?
Correct. I would like to start off with the point that you mentioned. Firefighting is eventually what a lot of teams end up doing daily, right? And that is why risk mitigation is the, the ultimate goal of the team, right? And this starts on very early. It should start when the sales cycle is about to get completed. Ideally, it should start when the sales team has already begun talking to a potential client. And while the conversations are on, my opinion and what this is what I've passed on to the sales team as well is keep everything um, updated. Let the CS team know what is happening because requirements come up randomly, or the moment the deal is closed is where uh, issues start arising.
Right.
So, in order to preempt this, the first and the foremost part will be to understand why the client has bought the product and what do they want from it. However, there's a small hiccup that usually happens here. The POCs or the people who were in touch with the sales team usually change, right? Because the
Right.
decision makers might be different. It will be some senior management people who will be, going through the payment process and understanding. Okay, so they've made the decision on buying the product, but they've not passed on the feedback to the ultimate users of the product. And making sure, as the CS team, making sure that the regular POCs you are in touch with have complete idea of why the product was bought. Number one. Number two, what is your product all about? So these training sessions, as soon as possible, the kickoff call is when you are deciding and discussing the goals of both the sides, the client as well as your company, and to ensure that all the stakeholders are involved. So this is the first and foremost. The second part will be to understand customer behavior. Now, even though of course, all the clients are different, you can segment them. So this customer segmentation really helps when you are delving into what happened in the past. Churn is inevitable, but you can always learn from it, right? Now, if you
Mhm.
document this, what exactly happened, create case studies. I have personally seen that creating case studies has been very helpful in both the good and the bad cases. However, it is more helpful in the bad cases to understand how a green client, for example, suddenly went from being a happy, satisfied client to suddenly a churn client. One day they come up and they say that they don't want the product anymore. So understanding these patterns. This will definitely be, uh, to create a customized plan for different segments. It can be SMB, we have enterprise clients, how to deal with them, uh, see what the issues were the product issues in the past, was it just communication, was it product updates that were not passed on, it can be anything. The third point that I can add to this is to understand again customers who are at both the spectrums. You have very happy clients and you have very unsatisfied clients. Sometimes again we forget about the happy clients because we know that we are not regularly, they're not calling us up, they're not raising a lot of
Right.
support tickets, and we forget about them. We're like, okay, they're green, fine, let them use the product. But this is where the opportunity as the customer success team comes in, is to be able to add value. They are using the product, but check data points. How much of the product are they actually using? It might
Mhm.
just so happen that they are using it for, let's say, 20%. 80% of the product is completely untouched by them. A competitor comes in, shows them, why are you using this? We are going to give it to you, let's say, at a lower price, or show them more value. So be in constant touch with even the green clients, and of course the red clients, the danger ones.
Mhm.
They also definitely need to be handled with a lot more care,
Right.
to be able to, to involve your senior people as well, to let them know that they are being heard and their feedback is extremely important, because eventually these are the clients that help you evolve the product.
Right. Right. I agree. Yeah. You've made
So
some. Yeah. Please continue.
yeah, that's it. That's about it for this.
Okay. What struck me at the very beginning is that you've pointed out that risk mitigation begins in the sales process itself. In all the readings or all the general talk about risk mitigation enters when the client is already deep into adoption or is already using the product in the onboarding phases, when you probably get the idea that it could be a risk. Maybe they will, onboarding is not that smooth and this is a risk. Or maybe adoption, like you mentioned, that they're using only 20% of the product is a risk. But I think it's important that we start understanding, like you mentioned, that key reason to buy the product and begin with risk mitigation measures and, in the sales process. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Thank you.
And because you're leading a team yourself, Pragya, and you've mentioned some, already covered a lot of good points in my first question, but as a leader, what would you say is the foundation of a strong risk mitigation playbook? And this is a question in general catering to just the CS leaders leading a team.
Right. I have a very simple answer for this. This is, the foundation, the base of this is to create a fine balance between customer advocacy and your company's ultimate goal. Uh, a lot of times we are derailed from the roadmap when we have recurring issues from a few important clients, and we start putting the focus on their requirements. I'm not saying you should ignore that, definitely not. But to be able to balance both these sides, where you are helping the clients, fixing their bugs, giving them required important features in the long term, you have to gauge, you have to prioritize, and to understand what is eventually also going to help your company, because revenue is why every activity is being carried out. So make sure that the revenue generating activities are on. You stick to your roadmap, you stick to your ultimate plans for the company. However, of course, be very sensitive to customer requirements and add them to the plan. Keep it ongoing side by side with your company's vision.
That's yeah, making sure that the product is not overburdened with a lot of new requirements on and on. Yeah, that's
Yes,
a good
because
one.
a lot of companies these days have products that are evolving. No product
Mm-hmm.
is perfect,
Mm-hmm.
and feedbacks keep coming on a
Right.
day-to-day basis.
Right.
So creating a prioritizing framework here will be
Mhm.
extremely helpful, and spread this across the entire team, not just the customer success team, the product team,
Right.
the dev. Everyone should be in loop for this.
Yeah. Yeah, like the general tendency is that customer success is just customer success team's responsibility. But now
Correct.
the idea is changing a little bit that no, it has to be a company-wide culture. One team won't be able to pull it off. Now that you've at length helped us understand what risk management involves, identifying so on and so forth. So when we are putting together a playbook, let's say we started the process, and what would you think, how do you picturize your key components of identifying the risk and managing and bringing them to closure? So, in short, the key components of risk management process.
So, so as a leader, I like to stay in touch with all the clients. However, the ones that are the most important are the ones in the onboarding phase and the hypercare phase, because this is where you are again building the foundation of your relationship with the client. And while the activities are going on, accounts are being created, information is being migrated, etc. On a different level, client feedback is extremely important on each and every phase.
Right.
So starting from onboarding till uh, their regular usage once they've moved out of hypercare and now they're using the product. Let's say we have a 2-year-old client. Just
Mm-hmm.
these feedbacks. Now, NPS CSATs are very basic. These
Mm-hmm.
are the surveys that go out regularly. But documenting these feedback, especially the one-on-one conversations you're having on emails, on telephones, are again extremely important.
Right.
And for documentation, there is a separate part as well. What were the issues that happened? What were the processes that were followed? The workflows. In fact, even the root cause analysis of bugs
Mm-hmm.
and other problems that happen. Documenting all of this is extremely vital because we do spend a lot of time working on this
Mm-hmm.
and we lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And the next time a similar issue happens, because this happened with me personally, I had worked on, for example, a major bug and we worked on it, we resolved it, the client is happy now. 1 year later, something similar happens with another client. And then
Mm-hmm.
I remember that I worked on this, but I have no feedback. I don't have any documentation for this. What exactly happened? What were the steps that were followed? So this makes it extremely useful. So this will be the second element.
Mm-hmm.
The third will be creating a seamless onboarding process.
Right.
Um, Again, onboarding is a pain point for a lot of customer success teams.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is also shown that customers who are proactively onboarded are 75% more likely to stick, like to renew, to stick with you. Uh, and to be able to create, now, of course, onboarding process needs to be customized per client
Right.
if you have a smaller client base or segment wise. Uh, and of course, small tweaks here and there
Mm-hmm.
definitely need to be made. However, the key element here is the proactiveness.
Right.
Client shouldn't be the one reaching out to you. And
Mm-hmm.
in fact, one thing that I had seen while working with you in the past was that SmartKarrot was the team that reached out to us in order to continue this onboarding process, right? So this was a very important learning because this is where I understood that client it is not the client's job solely. It is also the customer success team's job to
Mm-hmm.
keep following up with the client, to just catch up, even if there's a
Right.
delay, keep them
Mm-hmm.
posted.
Correct.
So this is
Right.
important.
Yeah.
And again, the fourth point here will be keep reminding the client why they have been um, a part of your company. Why did they buy the product? What is the value proposition, right?
Right.
And help them increase the adoption of of
Mm-hmm.
the tool. And this can be, of course, done with data points. Fetch what are the features that are being used, see
Right.
how the usage of the product is going, get end user feedback, get the POC's feedback, and just because the product is out there doesn't mean the client is going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, mitigating risk will be a part of increasing product adoption.
Yeah, and especially the line that you said in the last few words, which is just because the product is out there doesn't mean the client is using. Because we ourselves see that there may be 100 features, small, big, all put together, but only 20-25% of it is being used, and the others just latent lying around. So much dev effort goes into it, but it turns out not that productive and doesn't align with either our vision of how the product should be used or how the market is moving towards. So that's a very good point. And Pragya now would have helped us elaborate on creating the process, identifying the risk, and towards the fourth point you mentioned in the previous answer that be data aligned. So how do we measure the success of the playbook that we have put together when it comes to risk mitigation?
Right. See, the surveys are always out there. So I would not like to talk about the NPS and the CSAT because these are definitely very important indicator
Uh-huh.
of how the product is doing. Uh, there are other ways in which you can measure the impact that you are making for the client, right? So what gets measured gets managed, and there are two types of indicators here. One can be a lagging indicator, like a renewal, for example, but that happens once in a quarter or once in 6 months, and that will take some time. The second can be leading indicators. Uh, these are the milestones that you actually achieved while the onboarding was going on, or other milestones during the entire customer life cycle. Support tickets. How many tickets are being actually raised?
Mm-hmm.
These are the data points that you need to see on an ongoing basis. If the support tickets for a particular client has reduced, that means the issues are definitely resolved, but are we still adding the value that the customer requires? So, holding quarterly business reviews, for example, how many were held, what was the feedback, and ultimately see how the client is attending product sessions, for example. If, for example, you hold a product webinar and some clients are more proactive attending it.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they engaging with the team, right? The
Right.
next point here again is not very data related, but a happy customer success team is definitely a very good indicator in helping you understand how uh, the team as a whole is working. And
I agree.
if they are doing the daily redundant work, the repetitive work of
Mm-hmm.
firefighting, they are going to be exhausted, and they are eventually not going to stick to what they are actually be supposed to doing. Right? You need to
Right.
support them. You need to help them so that they can help the clients.
Right.
Uh, Again, this will lead to the next point where your your POC becomes the spokesperson. Your client POC becomes the
Mm-hmm.
spokesperson for your product, and they are talking to their teams. They are spreading the word internally or
Right.
externally, uh, and you get good feedback. They are willing to give you testimonials. These are great indicators on understanding. And
Mm.
lastly, in my personal opinion, I have understood that a very good way of understanding that I have been able to avoid any churn activities is when I am able to stick to my own projects, right? I will have my own KRs, and I'm able to
Right.
stick to those because I know I'm not spending a lot of time uh, spending every day or every minute worrying about the customers.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. The quote that you said, what gets measured gets managed. That's a very effective one. I think we cannot have a statement like, oh, the call went very well. So we're hoping that the client won't churn. These things will not lead to success. Yeah, I strongly agree with that one. Pragya, I think you've covered the topic in a very wholesome fashion. So, in the closing arguments, I wanted to know your thoughts on how companies or teams can adapt their sales strategies to stay ahead of the risk and challenges.
Right. Uh, so this is a point we already spoke about, but I like to reiterate the importance of this. As customer success is evolving, uh, the entire organization needs to become a very customer centric organization. And uh, everyone on the team, not just the customer success team, the senior leaders, the finance team, the product team, the sales team, everyone needs to know that we are eventually working for the customer. It is not just the customer success team's duty to be catering, right, to the client. And uh, a part of this, again, that has worked personally for me, is to help connect these teams every day, right? I don't want to connect only to the product team the day I have a requirement. I want both the product teams and the customer success teams to be connecting, let's say, once fortnightly,
Mm-hmm.
just to give them an update on what's happening. So it can either be just with individual teams, or it can be like a whole town hall where
Mm-hmm.
all the customer success wins are being discussed and data points are being shared. This will again require the support of the senior leaders here, and yeah, help towards becoming more proactive than reactive.
Right.
And communication is a very important part of this. So communication between CST members. In fact, uh, sometimes there is a tiff between the sales team and the customer success team, not because of them not putting in their efforts, just because there was lack of communication, right?
Yeah.
So, in order to avoid all of this and to ultimately stick to the goal, this is communication is the key.
Right. You've put forward some very strong points today in this conversation, Pragya. Really appreciate you taking time out and elaborating and helping our listeners understand more on account risk management. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Shivani.